Hello friends, welcome to Salesforce Semantics video session 254. So basically in today's video, we will actually understand the reason why we went for the SAQL co-group in a step-by-step manner and how it's necessary to know that it evaluates from left to right. There are few other co-group types I could have also gone for, and I will tell you what kind of thinking pattern which happens with most people and which also happened with me when I was working initially. But of course, that particular part you always have to keep in mind and ensure that you build in a step-by-step manner. Let me jump directly to the video so that you can understand that better. Now, we actually solved this part, right? So the code, I have actually written it over here. Let me open that lens. Now, definitely you must have understood like how that particular structure works once the co-group is applied immediately after co-group, how that concept of bags comes into picture and all. It's a like informal term which I'm using, a bag, but just to explain you the bag or bucket, how that is happening. Okay. But here, if you see a few rows, few cells are blank. If you see, for example, on the total units sold and total tickets count, this part I think you already know how to resolve it. Like we have already understood, we can utilize this coalesce function. Okay, that's not a big issue. So I will just quickly write it so that it becomes more presentable. And we can run the query. That is fine. It will show 0 instead of that dash which is coming. Now, one more thing is you might just ask that, hey, we can also do in another way, right? Where if we take the common, okay, if we do an inner join of both of this, and finally, if we do a left join with this, then also we will get the same results, which is actually not wrong. So for example, let's say I have this PID. So let me first write that situation over here. So yeah, doing an inner join of B and C, right? And finally, doing a left join with A. Okay. Doing an inner join of B and B, and finally doing a left join with A. With A being on the left. So let me just write in bracket with A on left. Now, what does this mean is if I just explain you, for example, if you check this B and C, right? Let me start off with the PID over here. Okay. And maybe I can write the product name. That is fine. I can write the unit sold as well as I can write the support. Now, we are first of all, let's say if we do an inner join of this, okay, which can be done. So what I will get if I do an inner join, I will get P1 and I mean only P1 if you see, right? So only P1 will be there. So I'm doing a inner join with P1. Okay. So P1 is laptop, which is fine. Unit sold is 100 and the ticket count is 10, right? So I just did an inner join of B and C and I'm getting only P1, which is fine. Now, then you can do a left join with A being on the left. Okay. Or maybe I can write this in a better manner. Finally, okay, I think that's fine. Okay, that's fine, not an issue. Now, when you do a left join, so what we have done actually, if you see, like first we are doing an inner join, right? So it's like B by let's say PID 5, right? Okay, comma C by PID, right? And finally, you will do a left join with A being on the left. So I'm writing it over here, A by PID. Let's say I write left. Okay. Now, in a way, it is not wrong. So for example, now if I do an inner join, I mean, if I do a left join with A being on the left side, so I will definitely get these values, right? So I can map these values over here. This is not needed. And I can map this value 5 over here. Okay. This is definitely not wrong. Okay. If we are thinking in that way, it is absolutely correct. But the thing is that what the issue will happen on the code level. So example, if I write left over here, and if I just don't mention this part, right? If I run the query, you see it is showing me incorrect result, right? As I mentioned, the thinking process is not wrong. So for example, if you just thought that, hey, I will take the commons from both of this and I will finally do a left join with A being on the left side, right? The only issue is that you have to keep in mind this particular thing when you're dealing with SAQL, that in SAQL, cogroup function works from left to right. And just to add on this, and the rows which will remain remain or get dis sorry, which will remain or get discarded will depend on the cogroup type in each step from left to right. Okay. So that is something to keep in mind. So for example, over here, ideally the inner join is done. And finally, that particular resulting table being on the right, we are doing a left join with A being on the left. But the only problem is when you do it on SQL side, it won't work out because as I mentioned, it reads from left to right. So first what it is doing, if you see the logic over here is up till here, it is fine. It is doing a left join, right? So if I just consider this two part, up till here, it is doing a left join. So if I just write over here, co-group, and if I just mention in this sheet, right? So let's say I just mention in this particular sheet, sorry, co-group A by PID. Now what will happen is, what will be the result? So if I deal with those two tables, so ideally it is just taking the left from here. So that means I can definitely copy all this and just put it over here, right? And of course the units sold, I'll just take some specific values, which is matching. So this is being left. What is happening is like here, of course, these two values will be mapped. Up till here, it is fine, okay? But the problem comes in the next step. So for example, if I just write it as AB equal to, just for an explanation purpose, in the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write ABC equal to, because see, I'm just going by how that SAQL reads it. So let me just write this particular thing, how SAQL reads the function. I mean, sorry, not the function, the syntax, and the syntax which I mentioned over here, right? Which is this one. So I'm just explaining that part to you. Okay. So here, let me just write that ABC equal to. So second thing, what is happening is AB by, like it will be co-group, of course, co-group AB by, again, it would be that PID. Okay, comma. Now what I'm doing, I'm adding this new one, right? Which is C by PID, because see, there's no join type mentioned over here and the co-group type. That means it is definitely inner. As I mentioned, if there is no particular co-group type mentioned, it is by default taken as inner. So this is basically an inner join now, which is happening. So here, if I write this part, no, what will happen is this resulting table, which you see, okay, it will do an inner join with this C part. So let's say I copy this whole thing over here and let me just paste it side by side over here. Okay. Uh, just a little bit above, sorry. Yeah. Now what is happening is now it will do an inner join because that's the meaning of this. That's how SQL is reading that. So that's why it will take this product name. Okay. I will take this unit sold, which is fine. And I will take the support tickets. Now it's doing an inner join, which means what is common between these two tables? If you see, that is P1, right? And only P3. So I will just put the P1 over here, as well as I will put the P3 over here. I will just put the proper product name, which is fine. I will put the unit sold as 100 and there's nothing for this one. And from here, I will only get 10 and I will get 5, right? Now, this is the ultimate result which you see over here as well, right? So if you see when I went by this logic, it is giving me this result. This is quite a common mistake which most people who are in this Salesforce CMatics might just do, or let's say if you are just came over here, new to the Salesforce CMatics journey, and mistake which I even also made during my initial years. But that is one thing which you always have to keep in mind, that from an understanding perspective, the way you think is definitely correct. But at the same time, you need to understand how that SAQL logic is working in the backend and what is the rule which it is following, okay, internally. That is something which you have to keep in mind. And then you have to ensure that whether both of your thinkings are matching or not, at the end of the day, the way SAQL is structuring its logic, you have to go by that. So in a way, you cannot really say that I have inner joined B and C, and then I have ensured that with A being the master data set, I have done a left join over there. No, it's going from left to right, right? So what is happening is when it joined this two table, A and B, after that it's reading as an inner join. And that's why you see this exact same result, the way which I explained you over here as well. So that's why this logic is wrong. This won't work out. I just ought to explain this one because this is something which many of us might just follow. So just keep that in mind, and ideally, the other logics will just automatically happen. So that was about this, just to explain you how to mentally think and how to keep certain rules in mind when you're dealing with SAQL. Now, I will cover the next scenario, which is this one in the next session. Show me all products that are either officially launched or sold plus support info it exists. So what I will do is I will just copy this part. We will do it in the next session, of course, but let me just map it over here. Okay. Just map the question so that we are ready by the time we come across in the next session. What I can do is I can just merge this one as well. Okay. And definitely let me just copy all this three table because this is something which I'll be needing as well. And let me just paste it over here. Fine. Now, if you see, show me all products that are either officially launched or sold, which means all these products are going to come up. That means I can definitely say from P1 to P5, every products are going to get mapped. And at the end of the day, it's saying plus support info if exist. So one thing is for sure, like because this word called or is mentioned, right? Only because of this word, sorry, only because of this word called or, I definitely know one thing, that I have to map all the PIDs from here as well as here, right? So I will just copy this part over here and I will also mention the P5 because it's saying all, right? And after that, of course, I can map all the other necessary columns, which we will continue in the next session. So for today's session, that was about it, just to help you think like how, in a way, when we work on SAQL, we might think in a proper logical manner, like doing an inner join and finally doing a left join of this SML table with the A, with A being the on the left side. But how we also have to keep in mind that how that SAQL thinks and how we have to align in the way that SAQL thinks and then map our own solution. So that is something also which is important to me. That's it about this. Let's meet very soon in our next video. Thank you.